righty, we are live and ready to go. Dr. Summer Casno. Oh,
Yay.
Sydney is calling me right now, and I didn't put my phone on silent. Sydney, you're going to see this.
Sitting.
Anyway, let's get going.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, you know what? This is life, right? This is what
Yeah.
happens. But yes, well, welcome back everybody to another Lady Leaders webinar, not just for women. We love everybody to listen. It's just hosted by Lady Leaders. And what we're going to be discussing today is something that I just did. Literally just got off the phone now with 7 calls, coaching calls today. And what's funny is how many of them came back to, is there any possibility of using remote team members to help the dental office, but still maintain a really high level of customer service? So I do know that this is a really relevant topic for sure. And so I'm excited to dig in with what I know. I will say to everybody, I am never the end all be all of answers. I've just tested a lot of things, tried a lot of things, and made a lot of mistakes for sure. So, I had to dip my toe into what it looks like to have remote team members over the last few years. Because if anybody's been, listening to, any of the podcasts, where I live in the Vail Valley of Colorado, we have an incredibly small pool of people to pull from for customer service type positions. And we had a whole bunch of people who moved in who were remote workers. So they work from home, but they demanded services. And so we had a ton of, restaurants and things like that that had to close down because they just couldn't find people to work. And so with that, it created this challenging opportunity for me to figure out how much stuff could I create remote. And I now joke that I think, in my large offices, probably it's 65-35, meaning 65% in person and 35% remote now. And there's a lot of things I wouldn't have guessed. It's really significant, as a matter of fact. Sometimes when I told somebody how many team members we had, and they were a current team member in the office, they're like, well, where are all these people? And I'm like, you don't technically see them. So
Funny.
yeah, but they are there and they are, for sure our team members. So, I'm going to first kind of walk through, for me, why would you even consider remote team members? Well, the first thing I would say is if it ain't broke, you don't necessarily have to fix it. If you're fortunate and you've got incredible team members that are fulfilling all the roles, you don't feel overwhelmed, you don't feel overstressed or overtaxed. All the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed. Great, stay the course. But what can start to happen as you're growing and scaling is you might start to notice that a lot of the things you're looking to delegate, you can no longer give to front office people anymore. It's too many tasks. It's too much for delegation within the office. So that can be, one of those times where you may want to consider it. For me, I did it because I wanted a bigger talent pool. I wanted to be able to pull from a bigger, geography to find really talented people to work on our team and have them just work from a different location. I wanted to be able to find people that would be dedicated to that position. They were excited about it and passionate for it. In my area, and maybe you're in rural areas or metro, that if you're really honest, people apply for the position, but they're not honestly super passionate about that work at all. And so that was one of my reasons. I will say, I do have to admit, cost savings has been pretty great. The cost savings for repetitive lower level tasks has been so helpful because, I developed this philosophy a couple of years ago where I would rather pay top dollar for the best people and have them doing the highest value patient facing things possible. Any lower level tasks that are repetitive, that are very, for the most part, black and white, start and finish, I would always rather delegate those out. Anything that involves real critical thinking or patient facing, problem solving, care, really oriented things. Of course, I want people in office, but for me, that cost savings on the repetitive lower level tasks is one of the reasons I considered it. And like I said, utilizing the team members that I do have for the highest and best use always. And like I said, what I found was as my admin team was able to utilize remote team members, it really did reduce so much of the burden and little minute stressors that were kind of on their plate. And so that's why I continue to consider, could we get more remote team members to help out? Ashley, what about you? Because I think you actually have some pretty good experience with working with remote teams, obviously. So what for you are things you have found offices should be thinking about when considering remote workers?
I mean, obviously everything you're touching on. I love that you mentioned too, like the things that you can take off of your team in person, especially if your team members are willing to be there in person. That, you know, is a different set of skills and kind of motivations. So if you can ease their burden, then they're going to thrive even more as you kind of grow those roles in person. So I love that you touch on that. Yeah, the Dental Success Network team is totally remote. The majority of the team lives in Nebraska. We have people in Arizona. I'm in Colorado, obviously. But that expansion of talent pool has been really huge. Of course, it comes with its own challenges, remote speaking, and I'm sure we'll get into that in a minute. But the expansion of talent pool really is the biggest plus I've seen. It's just you can find people who really want to be in that role instead of kind of trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
And that's what I found was happening a lot is I was trying to take somebody who wanted to leave Starbucks and turn them into something that they just weren't necessarily even, they didn't have the drive necessarily fully to do. Um, so let's kind of move into, let's differentiate between the different types of remote workers. Because I think when we say remote team members, people don't know if that's virtual, someplace else. What does that look like? So I do think, when I think about remote workers, they can be remote and in the United States, and they can be department specific. So I'll kind of go into this. That could be somebody in the insurance, billing and insurance department for you, somebody in the scheduling department for you. But they're in the United States, they just work remote. They can be remote in the United States, and they can be truly more of an administrative assistant who's behind the scenes and does not do anything patient related. That is exact. Ashley is the queen, as everybody knows, of finding exactly that person. And that can be personal assistants, admin assistants, executive assistants who can help oversee. And I'm going to get more into this because I have a whole team of those. They can help see a lot of the things behind the scenes as well, but they're not patient oriented or department specific. You can have remote outside of the United States, department task specific. And like I said, that's exactly the same thing as, like I have people who take calls, and believe it or not, they're not in the United States, which sounds scary. Hang in there, folks. I promise it's all okay. But you can absolutely have people outside the United States also do insurance verifications, social media stuff, marketing stuff, website stuff. And that can be task specific, department specific. You can also have them outside the United States, and you can have virtual like personal assistants as well. And some people love to utilize them as well. I don't have much experience with that. I've utilized personal assistants, admin assistants, all within the United States. So I don't have as much experience there, but I know for a lot of people that love it. Ashley, what do you think for categories? Anything I'm missing?
No, I think that's perfect. And I think something to consider too is it doesn't have to be as black and white as like personal assistant, admin assistant, executive assistant. These are kind of blended roles. And the way I kind of, break it down as a personal assistant, obviously helping with personal tasks. They're, maybe booking your doctor's appointment, your eyelash appointment, whatever it might be. Admin assistant helping with those tasks like putting together your operations manual, document creation, team follow-up, like someone who's keeping track of team anniversaries and that type of thing. And then executive assistant can also be those things, but at a higher level. They have access to tax information, maybe bank account information is read-only, and they can see the numbers coming in. They're tracking production for each of the docs in the office and that type of thing. So it doesn't have to be black and white. It can be super blended, and you don't have to dive full time into one of those positions, and have it be purely virtual as well. I know we're talking about virtual, but like kind of those hybrid roles are super helpful too sometimes.
Yeah. So your point being is when we're talking about whether it be in the United States or truly outside the United States, for personal assistant, admin assistant, and EA position, you could have somebody technically locally too,
Yeah.
and I have one of those where
Mhm.
she's an admin assistant and she's able to help in the office. And she does exactly what you said, some of the administrative kind of support tasks behind the scenes. So your point being like, this is all a hybrid approach. It really comes down to what do you need,
Right.
more or less,
Right. Right.
for tasks. So, okay. Well, and, Ashley, you kind of insinuated, a little bit about there are pros and cons to remote workers. And by the way, it's in all industries. Every industry I've talked to, they're like, that whole remote thing that started after COVID, I think it's been really great for a lot of people. I think a lot of business owners, I think a lot of industries can say it does come with pros and cons. Um, you know, what I will say is what I have found, and I'm excited to hear from you too, Ashley, is you really do have to have a solid IT company, cybersecurity, and support. It's super important when you are dealing, obviously, with HIPAA and things like that. And I'm sure I don't need to belabor this point, but you do have to have an IT company that knows how to set up remote workers and can be extremely helpful with that because it's a big deal if you're using virtual assistants in a different country, you know, and we'll go more into reputable companies that can help with that. But you have to ensure that that is all incredibly secure, or, obviously you could get in trouble there.
Yep.
You do have to hire people who are already accountable to self. They're very disciplined with their time. And ideally, I like it if they have worked remotely.
Mhm.
Um, Me personally, I just like to know that they have had some experience there because it is a weird transition to go from having somebody watch everything you're doing during the day in a brick and mortar location to now being completely open with your time units. You can start at 7 a.m. You could potentially finish at 9 p.m. You know what I mean? I think that can be a little tough for people who are transitioning. So if I can find somebody who has had some experience with that, I personally prefer it. One thing that can be tough, and Ashley, I would guess you could attest to this, is sometimes it can be hard to create an incredible culture where it feels inclusive
Yep.
when people are in all different places. Um, and we've found ways to overcome that as much as possible and really ensure that we're folding everybody in. But it is a little bit tough because they don't feel the culture energy, of that place. They don't feel it. And the thing that I do say is, I think people underestimate the time to onboard. I don't know why, but I always hear doctors who are like, "Oh, that'll be so great. They're remote. Like it'll be quicker to onboard or easier." And I'm like, it's not. It's actually sometimes harder, to be honest. Um, and so I think the rewards on the other side are everything that we kind of discussed in the beginning, that you have passionate people who are often super committed to the position. They, if they've done remote work before, they can be extremely effective with their
Mhm.
time because they're focused. So cost effectiveness can be there as well, as pros. So I think there's lots of pros, but there are kind of those cons that we just discussed. What do you think, Ashley?
I mean, pros and cons, especially if you're doing someone out of the US. I mean, we have several VAs who help us who are out of the US, but making sure you're very specific about your hours that you need them to be available. That's something people don't necessarily, think of sometimes, is, they're on completely different time zones. And so if you absolutely need them to be available during those hours, you'll find them. There's many people. We have a few on our team who work, I think they're working like 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. and that's their jam. They're open to it. But you just have to be very intentional, intentional, intentional about what you're looking for, and communicate that as you're seeking those people. But the culture one is a really big deal as well. And as you're onboarding, making sure that the team that you have onboarding them as they're learning different things are conveying that culture as well. So that goes back to like our bajillion webinars we've done on, building your culture, but making sure that, they're communicating what the goals are and how we are and how we act. And then we do, do like virtual team building activities, we play games together online and that type of thing. Summer, I was just telling you though, too, we're hosting a get together at my house where our virtual team, it's a little bit of an expense, but we're getting everyone together at my house and we're having a field day and we're playing kickball and we're going to be, powwowing. And, at the same time, though, we don't have a brick and mortar office. And so we're not paying rent on that. So every once in a while we get the team together to bond and get together. And it has paid off in spades because with our core team, we haven't replaced anyone in a couple of years.
Exactly. And I couldn't agree more. I'll kind of make sure to touch back on that. But all the cons, I have found ways to either get around it or just have a realistic expectation, maybe
Yes.
is even more so.
Realistic expectation, like that
Yeah.
should be in bold letters.
Yes. I think I've just changed kind of what to expect, and that's made the difference. But you kind of hit on it that how we've used them is much like you said. We were very specific on what we knew we wanted to have done. We knew there was very specific tasks and time, of what we needed from them. And I'm going to start with, some of the tasks that, and you kind of mentioned them, that can be delegated out to any of those people, whether they're in the US or virtual: insurance verifications, hygiene reactivation, so reactivating patients on the hygiene list, email correspondence with specialists, social media posting and boosting, website, like I said, creation or blog posts if you like to do that kind of stuff, website updates. Believe it or not, hiring, being the first line of defense in hiring, rotation and helping the production of ads with AI nowadays. My goodness, it's amazing what these people can create. You give them a little information and they can create ads and post, repost, highlight the ads, change the ads, things like that. And then they can monitor the email for all of the first applications and things like that. Marketing stuff, like I said, social media posting, ordering swag for the offices. Much to your point, I have my admin team do all of the work anniversary gifts, special occasions, catering. If I do that, they organize all of that. And then we even use them for scheduling help. And so we use them for scheduling help and call support as well. So believe it or not, like we've actually transitioned some of our virtual people to be able to answer the phone, schedule, and handle a ton of the call volume. Now they're only ours, which made a big difference versus, say, for us, sometimes the other call centers were just hit or miss because people answered the phone for all different offices. The nice thing is we've been able to really dedicate training time to 2 people that answer the phones in our offices and only our offices. So it's just made it quite a bit easier. But those are just some of the tasks that we found over time we've been able to kind of delegate out to these different positions. But you need to come up with what are the list of things that could be delegated. And when you go through, do they need to be in the United States? Do they need to be available during certain hours? Could they be outside the United States? And I think that's kind of where to start with all of this as to which person, which company to start to reach out to for this. What do you think, Ashley?
I love that. So I want to say, Rebecca put in our chat here too, that we implemented 5 VAs into our dental practices and eliminated the need for any front desk and office team members. And the training and onboarding took longer than you'd expect, but it was worth it due to the fact that they are dedicated and so loyal. They were able to double our production in our locations and reduce AR in under 60 days. Best decision we ever made. So obviously, again,
Amen, Rebecca.
Probably gonna have to pull you and Rebecca as far as execution of that, but
Yeah.
I'm on the same page. Things I tell people when they know they need to start delegating, and that's usually when there's overwhelm in the office and you're like, oh, it's too much, like I can't get to things are slipping through the cracks. And the things that you start to delegate are the things that you dread doing, the repetitive things, sometimes the things you suck at. You mentioned, social media marketing, like as dentists, as, front office team members who are really good at engaging with that person who walks in the door, they might not be the best person to say, hey, create social media for, those repetitive tasks that just pile up, those are really great things to start to delegate. And those, insurance verification is a really common one as well. But yeah, if you're repeating it, if you're avoiding doing it, if you suck at it, and if you just don't like doing it too. When I talk to docs about just hiring personal assistants, like things you just hate doing. I had a doc who was like, I hate ordering groceries. I hate to be in charge of that. There's a personal assistant that can be 100% virtual. You can have a virtual assistant ordering your groceries every week,
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
so, so many things to do.
Oh, and when it comes to like truly the personal admin side, I mean, I tell people all the time, like, there's somebody for everything. Like, I feel
Yes.
like that's a commercial, but it's true. Like, there is somebody who loves doing everything you
Yep.
don't like.
Yep.
Kid you not. Like laundry, meal prep, meal cooking, cleaning, kid stuff. Like, there's people who love all of that. So if you're just overwhelmed by it all, I'm like, there's somebody for that, I'm sure.
Yep.
So,
Exactly. Exactly. I love it.
but yeah, I mean, and I do think too, like I said, that's why it's so important to decide, are these tasks for you as the doctor?
Mhm.
Are they HR from behind the scenes support? Or are they more patient integration type ones? Which, to Rebecca's point, I think utilizing them, we've done the same thing. That made me so happy. That just made my heart happy because I'm like, we found the same thing. Like onboarding is really tough sometimes, but it's really worth it. Because they can actually do patient focused tasks extremely well from far away. And when it comes to stuff like social media, we have people who will snap pictures in the office. They just download them to Jillian. She creates our entire social media stuff, all of our Canva, pretty marketing posters. And that's all she does for us.
Yeah.
And we hired her at 10 hours a week.
Yeah.
Um, and it's pretty incredible. She loves it.
Yeah, and the freaking AI stuff that's coming out now too. Canva just launched a whole new update where they are like batching creation of content for you now too. And it like they have an AI system built in, which is, and when I hire for assistants, one of the things I say is, these technologies aren't coming for our jobs. Somebody has to run them still. And if you can master these technologies and be willing to learn, like there's so much room for growth. But yeah, Canva and social media just launched a whole new awesome update I could go down a rabbit hole about, but
Yeah, which I would actually love to hear the rabbit hole at some point.
okay,
But
great.
I truly mean that. I'm like, cool. Actually, Jillian will love it too.
I know, right? I'll
Um,
send you the link.
but with that, I want to kind of stay on that thread of I have heard people because I was at a mastermind a couple masterminds ago, and I did say, in front of everybody, much to Rebecca's point, I was like, you know, we've integrated so many virtual assistants that they have taken over for us the first line of calls, and it has made our front office so quiet so that all we have is personalized TCs. My billing is remote completely. I kept that within the United States just because it's a little bit more it was a little bit more comprehensive. And my person who was in office for billing moved to Colorado Springs, and so it just made it an easy transition for her to keep it. But to that point, overseas help can actually do a lot of the things patient oriented wise. They can do that. But what I have found is, to her point, it is more challenging to train somebody in the Philippines or wherever, even if they have incredible English, because the hours are different. They'll work whatever hours you want. They are the most excited,
Yes.
hopeful, committed people ever. I joke, I'm like, I think we've had them for over a year, and I think one of them has taken off one day. My favorite story is one of them had a baby and she cried and asked, I would love to take off a week, but if that's something I can't do, I understand. Because she was just so excited to be able to continue to work. And the way we've integrated them is a lot of us use Slack as our platform, to be able to do communications. They're not just on Slack, they celebrate birthdays with us, they're celebrated for things they do. We have all their information and their pictures in there. She posted pictures of her baby that we all commented on. So there was really cool ways to be able to include them, in what we're doing. And the onboarding was tough, and it is something that it's not just like 2 or 3 months and you're done, hands off. It is something that still to this day, one of my front office leads meets with them every single week. and they do a Zoom call, just like you said, and they review the spreadsheet of stuff that, questions that have come up or situations that they don't know what to do. And every single time, of course, with just every meeting, it gets a little bit easier, a little bit easier, a little bit easier. But, we found the same thing. These people are so committed, so exceptional. You do have to interview them. And the company we used was Medva, but I know there's a ton of other, companies for sure that you can find healthcare related virtual assistants, but because it's everywhere now. But you do want to interview for a culture fit. And we did that. We interviewed several people and found the culture fits for our offices. We listened to how they talk, we listened to their cadence, we listened to their speaking ability, their grammar. We had them do texting, written stuff to be able to see could they text back patients and things like that well. And man, we're the same. Like, I don't know, even if we could find great people, I don't think we would ever necessarily hire people in office because it has made things so streamlined, so efficient, really effective, and it just doesn't disrupt the culture because we have such an extraordinary culture in our offices that we don't want to add more people.
Ooh, that's a really good point. That's something I hadn't considered, but that's a real that in-person culture that you worked so hard on is a why mess with with it?
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because they love so much that team. My in-person team loves their remote people so much.
Oh,
And they've all developed such a lovely rapport that it's like, gosh, why would I disturb it? So I think, virtual can be super helpful for that. You can create, in my opinion, you could use virtual assistants for probably more of billing and probably do it very successfully. I was just fortunate that, like I said, I had one person who was able to just successfully transition remote as she moved. And then when we added two more part-time remote people, they were within the United States. I still was able to get them because of where they lived in the country at a significantly less amount per hour than what I would ever pay for somebody in person here. One's in Ohio and one's in a different part of Colorado. And I mean, the two of them together is still the same hourly pay as one person here. So I do think you can develop an entire billing team that is also remote. And that has been really exceptional for us. So we keep billing out of the office, we keep calls pretty much out of the office, and we keep most HR, most hiring, most administrative task stuff out of this office as well. So we have quite a robust team of admin people so behind the scenes. But anything you found with virtual and training, Ashley, that you can think of?
I mean, just back to, I mean, Rebecca said it, you said it, you just have to dedicate that time. Rebecca mentioned to the book Who Not How. It's Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. And so that book is such a great one as far as it's not the task, it's finding those people who are dedicated. And so thank you for bringing that up to Rebecca. Also, yeah, by all means, share your company, shoot it over to me. I'll put it in the comments or comment on this is live inside of Workplace if you want to comment underneath that as well, as far as companies you've used for finding VAs. The training is just kind of the biggest one, but also the onboarding. I really loved like your steps. We've done incredible webinars on onboarding, and I know that is one of your universal onboarding is such a gem. So I know the steps that you've taken to find that person and the energy that you're putting in there obviously is really paying off. So when people think, oh, I can just hire someone and I can just throw them in there, like, it's just not, you just have to know ahead of time that that's not how it's going to work. And if you put the effort into it in the beginning to onboard them, like you'll really, the juice will be worth the squeeze if you put the time in.
And it really does start, I want to make sure I say, like, it really does start with, even if you're doing virtual and you're going through a company, you have to recognize not all of them are good fits. They
Yeah.
don't vet them for like, are they a perfect fit for us?
Right.
It's, they just have either a background in dental or they've done, they've been a virtual assistant for healthcare of some sort. So you still have to interview. And just like we've talked about a million times before, you still have to pick the right candidate. And then from there, the one thing that I do say is very different, I have found, than training in the United States is these people say yes to everything a lot of times overseas. And I love it because their heart is so good, but they'll say yes to too much too fast. And because they don't want to say no. So I've really warned offices that I work with who are trying to do this that I always say, go slow to go fast with them, because they're going to say, yes, I can do that. Yes, I'll take that on. And you'll get excited and dump it all. And you're going to start to notice the mistakes happen.
Yeah, they're human too.
Yeah, they are human. But for some reason, people think like they are just,
Yeah.
they come ready out of the box. Like they're just like, boom, I'm here to help. And it's like, they are here to help and they are incredible and they will say yes to everything, but they don't know your ways, you know? And so they don't know your expectations. So I always tell people like, and I warn now, like when my team is training virtual assistants, they say, we are going to purposefully go slow before we go fast. And I want you to be aware of that, that if you're getting bored or if you feel like you truly just have such a great handle on it, you're ready for more, you can let me know. But otherwise, I'm going to purposefully ensure that every layer is solid before we add more to it. So we start with some of the really black and white basic things of what I discussed. We start there first. And we did have one that we, you know, because ideally we always want 3, but we just had to let one go not too long ago because as we were building that foundation, it just wasn't clicking for her. And that's okay. What's cute is even when, you know, Krista finally had to tell her, you know, hey, I just don't think this is quite working, you know, as far as your capabilities being able to match this. And she was so relieved. She was like, thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. I'm going to let, you know, the other VAs know like how wonderful it's been to work with you guys. And, you know, I will pass on your name for somebody else. I mean, everything about often working with them can be a really lovely experience, including letting them go. But to that point, I think because they are so willing to do anything, I think I have seen the tendency to want to put too much too fast. And I think it's important with them to go slow, go methodical, build the layers, check in consistently. And if you're going to have them do calls, you got to monitor the calls like crazy. Somebody needs to be listening to them all the time. So, and we just have a Google sheet that they just log into, they put stuff in, and then my front office leads, they look at every 2 hours just to see if there's something they need to help follow up on with them.
That's awesome. That's what a great system.
But anything else you can think of that you've seen with working with virtual assistants, because obviously you work with a lot too. Have you found the same tendencies? They just say yes to everything and want to help with everything? Yeah.
Yes. And yeah, exactly. And so you just want to keep that the what is it? The slow is smooth and smooth is fast, the Marines thing. And Dr. Aaron Nicholas is always saying it. It's the exact same tendency. You kind of have to feel it out, you know, see how quick the car can go before you really mash on the gas. It's, you know, we have lots of analogies here, but I just agree with you. Like as usual, this is, you know.
Yeah. We just edify each other's like experiences,
Yeah,
right?
no, you're great. I love it.
That's what I found too. Great. Okay, perfect. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I think
though.
help it. I know we do agree. But yeah, I mean, I think hopefully this has kind of helped people to see like you really can create a billing department, insurance verifications, so much HR, so much personal stuff, and so many administrative tasks within the office that right now your team is doing. There's so many of these things that you can start to delegate out successfully. And there's different ways to go about it in the United States, outside the United States, virtual. And sometimes you have to think through, like when it comes to the ROI of it all, you want to match the person's obviously skill set, abilities, you know, to the right position. Because I do think sometimes we want to save money by having a virtual assistant do it when, you know, somebody like a Jillian here in the United States could get it done significantly faster. And I joke, you know, if it's taking the virtual assistants 2 hours, but it takes Jillian 1, it's the same thing.
Exactly. Yes.
So
that is a really great point that I want to hammer home as well. It's, you know, it's about the skill level sometimes too that really makes that difference.
Yes. And that's what we have found with virtual assistants is there's just stuff that it doesn't make sense it's not because they're not smart, it's because they truly just don't understand the intricacies of what it looks like here. Whereas some of the other ones might have a better understanding of that. But we are really emphatic when it comes to tracking kind of that ROI. We do, like I said, weekly check-ins and audits of the KPIs per each of those positions consistently. So our virtual people, they know the numbers that they're looking to hit. They know, what tracking numbers they need to turn in. They need to show how many reactivation attempts. And, it's really important, regardless of position they're in, to have some sort of tracking system. I do that for my EA, the AAs, all of them. We all have weekly check-ins for that, which I'm going to let you expand upon. But there has to be, and they have to be willing when we're interviewing them, they have to be able to show proof of work and effectiveness.
Yeah.
And if they feel that that's some sort of micromanaging, or that just doesn't fly for me, because otherwise there's just no way
for you. Yeah.
We're going to be able to track, your productivity. There's just no other way. So what have you found with that, though, as we wrap up?
With the DSN team in general, we do morning huddle 4 days a week. So 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, we're doing a morning huddle just like a dental office would. And I joke with Sydney all the time because I try we race each other on who can do morning huddle the most efficiently sometimes, which means the fastest. No, we really adhere to that, and the team knows. And we take one day that we're not doing morning huddle just because then people can go directly into kind of that blue zone of working, and like dive into the projects you have working and going on. And but yeah, 4 days a week we're doing morning huddle with our virtual team, and it's usually no more than 15 minutes unless we have new projects we're working on. And yeah, just seeing where everyone is and if anyone has any hangups. So
yeah,
back to
awesome.
morning calls, like we've had webinars on. They're really no matter the team.
It is that level of preparation, and like knowing everybody is on track or off track is super helpful. So it's just, and then not only that, I think it does just keep that sense of connection between everybody, for
exactly.
sure.
There's usually some banter, right before we get started of where, the team is reading the same books together or whatever it is,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think that's just what it is. You get to see each other's face and things like that too. You get to, have that silly banter and stuff like that, which is so important. So, but hopefully, as I wrap up, I mean, we've given people just some ideas of when do we even consider, remote teams? What are some precursors that you can start looking for? And remember, remote teams can be, virtual assistants. They can be for the office. They can be behind the scenes administrative tasks. They can be personal type stuff too. But there's a whole range of tasks to be delegated to help both the team and the doctors. We differentiated between the different types of remote workers, and we talked about the pros and cons of it. Because there are lots of pros, but there are some cons that can happen as well if you're not prepared. We talked about all the different tasks, at least just a small amount of tasks, I should say, that could be delegated, but I think that list is infinite, if I'm really honest. And then we talked about virtual overseas help too. How do we hire them well? How do we create a training plan for them and audit them? And then just ensuring that ROI is there consistently. So anything though that we didn't hit on, I know there'll be some resources that Rebecca's posting too in that little section, but yeah, anything else that we didn't hit on?
I mean, I just like to go back to, if you feel like, you're struggling and overwhelmed and stuck with these things that are repetitive, that you hate doing, that suck up time, start to consider how you can delegate that out, whether it's VA or in person, or, just it goes back to the core of delegation really, but you can really master it with those virtual teams. Thank you, Rebecca. I'll just say it out loud in case you're listening, but the company she worked with was Reach. If you're in Dental Success Network, I just posted all of that information in the chat as well. So thank you for that, Rebecca. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, that was great, Summer.
Yeah, awesome. Short, easy. I think we hit all the points. So well
love
done,
it.
right?
I love it. I love it.
And I think next month we'll be talking about, what did we say? When to bring on an associate?
Yes. I think that's a great one to be adding in here. So we'll see you next month when we get our date set and coordinate our calendars. Summer, we apologize for moving this one. Thank you for your patience. I had jury duty that I was called into, so that's why we didn't get to have this at our regularly scheduled time. So
life happens. It's just what it is.
Life happens.
Basements flood, jury calls, and things happen. So it's just how it is. So
all right. Well, thank you so much, Summer.
Yes, thank you, and good luck with the basement. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.